Welcome everyone to another episode of the Pylon Show. I'm Geoff, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Artosis. How's it going, Artosis?
Hey, Geoff. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks for asking. So, Artosis, what do we have in store for our viewers today?
Well, we've got a lot of great topics to cover today, including the latest news from the StarCraft IE scene, some exciting tournament results, and of course, our special guest for today.
That's right, Artosis. Our guest today is none other than the reigning GSL champion, Stats. We're really looking forward to talking to him and getting his thoughts on the current state of the game.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great conversation. But before we bring Stats on, let's start with some of the latest news.
So, Artosis, what do you think about the recent balance changes?
Well, Geoff, I think they're definitely going to have an impact on the game, especially for some more aggressive strategies.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really looking forward to seeing how players adapt to the changes and come up with new strategies.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to watch. And speaking of watching, let's take a look at some of the recent tournament results.
Wow, some really impressive performances there. I can't wait to see how these players do in the upcoming tournaments.
Definitely. It's going to be exciting to watch. And now, let's bring on our special guest for today, Stats.
Welcome to the show, Stats. We're really excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Stats, you've had an amazing run lately, winning the SL Championship. What do you attribute your success to?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to my preparation and my ability to stay calm under pressure. But it's also a team effort, with my coaches and teammates helping me to improve and refine my strategies.
That's really interesting. What do you think about the current state of the game and the balance changes that have been made?
I think the game is in a good place right now, and the balance changes will definitely shake things up a bit. But as players, we're always adapting and finding new ways to play. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
That's great to hear. And finally, before we wrap up, do you have any advice for aspiring StarCraft I players out there?
My advice would be to never give up and to always keep learning and improving. It's a tough game, but if you put in the work and stay focused, you can achieve great things.
And make sure to always have a good sense of humor, even in the face of defeat. I mean, let's face it, I've lost so many games that I should be considered a professional at losing.
Hey, Geoff, don't sell yourself short. You've had some pretty impressive wins, too.
Well, that's true. I did once beat a top Korean player in a best-of-3 match. Of course, it was only because he accidentally unplugged his keyboard.
Oh, man, I remember that. You were so excited.
Yeah. It was one of my finest moments in StarCraft. But in all seriousness, I think it's important to keep a positive attitude and have fun with the game, even when you're not winning.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And speaking of having fun, we've got some great community highlights to share with our viewers.
Wow, those were some really great highlights. It's amazing to see the creativity and humor of the StarCraft I community.
Absolutely. The StarCraft I community never ceases to amaze us, and I have to say, Geoff, you always bring a unique perspective to the show.
Well, I try my best. And speaking of unique perspectives, we have a special guest joining us today.
That's right. Our guest today is none other than the one and only Stats. Stats. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So, Stats, you're one of the top players in the world. How do you prepare for matches and tournaments?
Well, it really depends on the opponent and the tournament format. But generally, I spend a lot of time practicing specific builds and strategies and studying my opponent's play styles.
That's really interesting. And how do you stay motivated and focused during long hours of practice?
For me, it's all about setting goals and reminding myself of why I love the game. I also like to take breaks and do other activities to keep my mind fresh.
That's great advice for aspiring players out there. And speaking of aspiring players, we have some community questions for you, Stats. All right, let's jump into some community questions for you, Stats. First up, we have a question from Zarvey99 on Twitter. They want to know, what's your favorite StarCraft IUnit and why?
That's a tough one. I would have to say the Stalker. It's a very versatile unit and can be used in many different situations. Plus, it's just a cool-looking unit.
Nice choice. Our next question comes from Protoss Player 97. They want to know, what do you think is the most important skill for a StarCraft I player to have?
I think the most important skill is the ability to adapt to different situations and playstyles. In StarCraft II, things can change very quickly, so you need to be able to think on your feet and adjust your strategies accordingly.
Great answer. Our last community question comes from Tyranbrune123. They want to know, what's your favorite StarCraft II memory?
That's an easy one. My favorite memory is winning the Diesel Season 1 Finals in 2017. It was a dream come true and something I have been working towards for a long time.
I can imagine that was an incredible feeling. Thanks for answering our community questions, Stats.
Yes, and thanks again for joining us on the show. We really appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about some of the topics we prepared for today's show. Artosis, you wanted to discuss the recent balance changes that were announced for StarCraft II.
That's right, Geoff. Blizzard recently announced some significant changes to the game, including changes to the Protoss War Prism and the Terran Reaper. I think these changes will have a big impact on the meta, and I'm interested to see how players adapt.
Yeah, it's always exciting to see how the game evolves with new patches and balance changes. And speaking of evolution, I want to talk about the upcoming GSL Super Tournament. What are your thoughts on the tournament, Artosis?
I think it's going to be a really exciting event. There are a lot of strong players competing, and the format is always intense. I'm particularly interested to see how players like Sorrel and Dark perform, since they've been dominating the scene lately.
Definitely. And I'm also looking forward to seeing some of the up-and-coming players make a name for themselves. It's always exciting to see new talent emerge in the scene.
But before we go, we have a few Patreon questions we want to answer. Geoff, you want to start us off?
Sure thing. Our first question comes from Michael B. They want to know, what's your favorite StarCraft I tournament of all time and why?
That's a tough one. There have been so many great tournaments over the years. But if I had to pick one, I would say the 2016 Global StarCraft II League Season 1 Finals. It was an incredible event with some amazing games and a really intense atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember that tournament. It was really something special. Our next Patreon question comes from Thomas P. They want to know, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the StarCraft I community right now?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the declining player base. StarCraft I has been around for a long time now, and it's natural for some players to move on to other games or interests. But at the same time, we need to keep attracting new players and keeping the community engaged and excited.
Definitely. And I think that's why events like the GSL Super Tournament are so important. They help keep the scene vibrant and exciting, and they showcase the best of what StarCraft I has to offer.
Absolutely. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode of the Pylon Show. Thanks again to our viewers for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
That's right. And don't forget, if you want to submit your own questions for us to answer on the show, be sure to sign up for our Patreon and join our Discord community.
Definitely. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode of the Pylon Show. Thanks to our guest Stats for joining us today, and to all of our viewers for tuning in.
And special thanks to you, Artosis, for always being a great co-host and friend.
Thanks, Geoff. It's been a pleasure doing this show with you.
Likewise, my friend. Well, that's it for today, folks. Until next time, keep on gaming and have fun.
And remember, if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover, be sure to tweet at us using the hashtag Pylon Show.
That's right. We always love hearing from our viewers. And speaking of tweets, let's take a look at some of the latest reactions to our show. Wow, it's always so heartwarming to see how much our viewers appreciate the show.
Absolutely. And we couldn't do it without you guys. So thanks again for watching and supporting us.
Yes, thank you. And Artosis, before we go, I just wanted to say that it's been an honor doing this show with you. You're not only a great co-host, but a great friend.
Thanks, Jeff. The feeling is mutual. And I think I speak for all of our viewers when I say that we'll miss you on the show.
Thanks, Artos. It's been a blast. And to all of our viewers, keep on gaming and having fun.
Goodbye, everyone.